My name is Florida Miller. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how I legally forced my parents to take back the disabled son they abandoned at my doorstep. When my parents announced their retirement to Florida, I was genuinely happy for them. They'd worked hard for 40 years, raised two kids, and deserved their golden years in the sunshine. What I didn't know was that their definition of freedom meant dumping my 28-year-old brother Marcus, who requires round-the-clock care, at my one-bedroom apartment with nothing but a suitcase and $500. "You're the sister," my mother said, avoiding eye contact. "It's your turn now." Then they blocked my number and disappeared. What followed was a legal and emotional battle that would culminate at my mother's 65th birthday party, where 40 relatives would witness the truth about the parents everyone thought were saints. Before we begin, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with stories about family boundaries. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Let me take you back to 3 weeks before they left, when the first red flags appeared. Growing up, I was the one who never said no to family. While my friends went to college parties, I was home helping Marcus with his therapy exercises. When relatives needed someone to pick them up from the airport at 2 a.m., they called me. When mom needed help organizing church fundraisers while working full-time, guess who volunteered every single weekend? I became a nurse because taking care of people was all I knew. The emergency room at Jefferson Memorial felt like an extension of home: chaos, needs, and me in the middle trying to fix everything. My coworkers used to joke that I'd apologize to a patient for their own heart attack if I could find a way. Marcus was diagnosed with severe autism when he was 3. The doctors said he'd need lifelong support, help with basic tasks, medication management, constant supervision. My parents handled it well for 25 years, I'll give them that. They found programs, fought insurance companies, and made sure he had structure. But somewhere along the way, I became the backup plan they never asked me about. 2 years ago, they started dropping hints. "Florida has such wonderful weather," Mom would say during Sunday dinners. "Your father's arthritis would do so well there." They subscribed to retirement community newsletters, left them casually on the coffee table when I visited. They even bought matching Hawaiian shirts as a joke last Christmas. I should have seen it coming when Dad said, "We need to make arrangements for Marcus's future." I assumed they meant a group home, maybe a trust fund. I even offered to help research facilities. Never once did they say that arrangement meant me. The signs multiplied like symptoms of a disease I couldn't diagnose. Mom started giving away her good china, claiming she was simplifying. Dad sold his woodworking tools, 40 years of collecting, in a single garage sale. When I asked why, he just shrugged. "Can't take it all with us." Us included Marcus, I thought. Of course it did. 3 weeks before they left, Mom asked me to take Marcus for a weekend. "Your father and I need to handle some paperwork," she said. Nothing unusual there. I'd taken Marcus plenty of times when they needed a break. He stayed in my living room on an air mattress, and we had our routine: morning medications, afternoon walk, evening puzzles, strict 9 p.m. bedtime. That Sunday, when they picked him up, Mom hugged me longer than usual. "You're such a good sister," she whispered. "Marcus is lucky to have you." The next week, they invited me to dinner at Olive Garden, my favorite, which should have been a warning sign since Mom always complained about the sodium content. Over breadsticks, they talked about their new condo in Clearwater. 2 bedrooms, they said, pool view, close to the beach. 2 bedrooms? I asked. Is Marcus okay with sharing? They exchanged a look I'd seen before, the same one from when they told me Grandma was going to hospice. "We'll work out the details," Dad said, refilling his wine glass. The morning they left, I got a call at 6 a.m. Mom's voice was strange, businesslike. "We're stopping by in an hour. Have your door unlocked." I thought maybe they wanted to say goodbye before their flight. I was still in my pajamas when they arrived. Marcus stood in my doorway holding a single suitcase, wearing his noise-canceling headphones and favorite Pokémon shirt. Behind him, my parents waited by their packed SUV, engine running. "What's happening?" I asked, though my stomach already knew. Mom stepped forward, pressed an envelope into my hand. Everything you need is in there. His medications, his schedule, his doctor's information. She wasn't meeting my eyes, focusing instead on a spot over my shoulder. Mom, what are you doing? You're his sister, she said, the words rehearsed. It's your turn now. We've done our part for 28 years. The envelope had $500 and a sticky note. For the first month. You can't just leave him here, I said, my voice cracking. I have a one-bedroom apartment. I work 12-hour shifts. I'm not equipped. You'll figure it out, Dad interrupted from the car. You always do. Marcus had already walked past me into my apartment, setting his suitcase by the couch like he'd done during visits. He didn't understand this was permanent. How could he? This is abandonment, I said. This is illegal. Mom finally looked at me then, and for a second, I saw something, guilt maybe, or fear. Then her face hardened. It's family. Family takes care of each other. They drove away while I stood in my doorway in bare feet, holding $500 and a medication list. When I called Mom's cell 5 minutes later, it went straight to voicemail. Dad's, too. By noon, both numbers were disconnected. I found out later they'd already been in Florida for 3 days, closing on their condo. The morning drop-off was just a detour on their way to the airport, not to fly out, but to return the rental car. Marcus needed his evening medications at exactly 6 p.m., or he'd have seizures. His morning routine took 2 hours. He couldn't be left alone for more than 30 minutes. My apartment, 560 square feet with neighbors who complained when I vacuumed, was now his entire world. I called in sick to work that first day, then the second. On the third day, my supervisor Helen pulled me aside. Florida, what's really going on? This isn't like you. When I explained, she went pale. How long can you manage? The math was brutal. Marcus's medications cost $400 a month after insurance. Insurance that I discovered had been terminated when my parents removed him from their plan. His special diet added another $300. Day programs that could watch him while I worked started at $2,000 monthly. My savings account had $3,400. 6 weeks. That's how long I could last. Adult Protective Services said it wasn't their problem since Marcus was safely housed with family. The police officer I spoke with actually laughed. Your parents moved to Florida? Smart. No state income tax. Marcus, meanwhile, was deteriorating. Without his familiar routine, his bedroom at my parents' house, the backyard where he'd pace for hours, he started having meltdowns. He broke my coffee table on day 4. On day 5, the neighbors called building management about the screaming. I tried calling relatives. Aunt Sarah said, "Your parents deserve their retirement." Uncle Paul offered thoughts and prayers. Cousin Jennifer suggested I start a GoFundMe. My parents had told everyone a different story, that I'd volunteered to take Marcus, insisted even, that they'd tried to talk me out of it, but I was determined to step up. My savings would last exactly 6 weeks, and then what? I couldn't even afford to send him back to them. I drove to the police station on day 7, Marcus in tow, because I had no one to watch him. The officer at the desk looked tired before I even started talking. My parents abandoned my disabled brother at my apartment, I said. He needs constant care. They moved to Florida and blocked my number. She pulled out a form. Is he being abused? No, but is he in immediate danger? Not immediate, but I can't. Ma'am, this is a civil matter. Family court. You'll need a lawyer. Marcus started humming, his stress signal. The fluorescent lights were bothering him. I knew we had maybe 10 minutes before a meltdown. They left him with $500. I tried again. That's not even enough for his medications. The officer softened slightly. Look, I get it. But unless there's abuse or neglect happening right now, we can't intervene. Florida is a different jurisdiction anyway. That evening, I called every family member in my phone. The responses were variations on a theme. Your parents sacrificed so much. They deserve happiness. You're young, you can handle it. Aunt Margaret, Mom's older sister, was the only one who sounded uncomfortable. "They told me you offered," she said quietly. "I didn't." A long pause. "Oh, honey." But even she wouldn't help. "I can't get in the middle of this." Marcus had started refusing meals, only eating goldfish crackers. He wouldn't sleep in the living room, instead standing by my bedroom door, humming until I let him curl up on my floor. My supervisor was running out of patience. The building manager left a note about lease violations regarding unauthorized occupants. That's when I remembered something from 3 years ago. Something about Grandpa's will. If you've ever been the responsible one in your family, you know exactly how I felt. Before we continue, please hit that like button if you believe family responsibility should be shared fairly. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who took advantage of your kindness? Your stories help others know they're not alone. 3 years ago, Grandpa Joe died and left everything in a trust for Marcus. Not a fortune, about $50,000, but specifically designated for his care. I remembered the family meeting at my parents' house. Everyone gathered around their dining room table while the lawyer explained the terms. The trustees, that's you, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, must ensure Marcus receives appropriate care throughout his lifetime, the lawyer had said. This is a fiduciary responsibility. Dad had signed papers. Mom had signed papers. They'd both nodded seriously when the lawyer explained the penalties for misusing trust funds or failing their duties as trustees. But the crucial detail, the lawyer had insisted on email confirmation, sending copies to all immediate family members for transparency. He'd said something about preventing future disputes. Mom had rolled her eyes at the time, as if we'd ever fight over taking care of Marcus. I still had that email, buried in my Gmail under family documents dated 3 years and 2 months ago. The subject line, Marcus Miller Trust, Trustee Obligations and Commitments. I opened it at 2 a.m. while Marcus finally slept on my bedroom floor. There it was, clear as day. Dad had written in his confirmation reply, "We understand and accept our role as trustees for Marcus's care. We commit to ensuring his lifelong safety, health, and appropriate living situation." The lawyer had replied, "This email confirmation serves as a binding addendum to the trust documents." My hands shook as I forwarded it to myself, then printed 3 copies. One for me, one for a lawyer, and one, I decided in that moment, for the entire family to see. But first, I needed to find the right lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Someone who understood disability rights, elder law, and family accountability. Someone who could make my parents listen. Jennifer Hayes didn't look like a pit bull, but the reviews called her one. "She got my autistic son the services the school district swore didn't exist," one review said. "She made the insurance company cry," said another. Her office was in a strip mall between a Thai restaurant and a tax preparer, but her walls were covered with settlement letters and thank you cards. She listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally writing notes in precise handwriting. When I showed her the email, she leaned back in her chair. "Your parents made 3 legal mistakes." 3. First, abandoning a dependent adult is a crime in both states. Second, as trustees, they have a fiduciary duty they've violated. Third, she pulled up something on her computer. Florida has what's called filial responsibility laws. Adult children can be held responsible for their parents, but it works both ways when there's a documented disability. "So you can help?" "And I can do better than help," Jennifer said. "I can make this very expensive for them. The trust violations alone carry penalties of triple damages. That's $150,000 they'd owe back to Marcus's trust, plus your expenses." She must have seen my face because she added, "I'm not suggesting we pursue that immediately, but they should know it's on the table." "What do you suggest?" "First, we document everything. Every expense, every day you miss work, every medical need Marcus has. Then we send a formal demand letter. If they don't respond appropriately, we involve Adult Protective Services at the state level, not local. We also notify the trust's original law firm. They have liability here too. How long will this take? Your mother's birthday is in 2 weeks, right? You mentioned she's having a party? Yes, but perfect timing. Nothing like family accountability in front of family. Jennifer worked like a surgeon, precise and methodical. Every receipt went into a folder. Every missed work hour got documented. She had me write down Marcus's daily needs in exhausting detail. The 5 a.m. medication alarm, the sensory breaks every 2 hours, the specific brand of socks he needed or he'd have a meltdown. The judge needs to see the full picture, she explained. This isn't just babysitting, this is specialized care. We pulled Marcus's medical records. 3 neurologists, 2 behavioral specialists, a thick file from the State Disability Office confirming his need for 24-hour supervised care in a structured environment. My one-bedroom apartment was not a structured environment. Jennifer contacted the original trust lawyer, Mr. Peterson. He was horrified. They told me Marcus was going to a group home, he said over speakerphone. I have an email from your father from 6 months ago asking about disbursements for placement fees. Another document for our growing pile. The call to Adult Protective Services at the state level went differently than my local attempt. Jennifer knew exactly which phrases to use. Fiduciary breach, dependent adult abandonment, interstate violation. The caseworker, Patricia Gonzalez, took notes and said she'd open an investigation. Can you send someone to the birthday party? Jennifer asked. That's unusual, Patricia said. The perpetrators will be there. The victim's guardian is my client. 40 witnesses. I think it would be educational. A pause. I'll see what I can do. By the end of the week, we had 30 pages of documentation, a formal demand letter ready to send, and something else. Aunt Margaret had called me. I've been thinking, she said. What your parents did isn't right. If you need someone to back you up at the party, I will. Mom's 65th birthday was in 2 weeks. Mom's 65th birthday party was going to be her Florida send-off celebration at the Hilton Garden Inn. 40 relatives invited, custom cake, photographer, the works. The Facebook event page said, celebrating Linda's retirement and new adventures. I RSVP'd yes for myself. No +1. Marcus would stay with a respite care worker Jennifer had found. $200 for 4 hours, documented of course. Here's what we're going to do, Jennifer explained, spreading papers across her desk. You'll attend normally. Midway through, when everyone's gathered for speeches, you'll take the microphone. And say what? The truth. But more importantly, you'll show them the evidence. I'll have copies of the trust documents, the abandonment report, and that email. 40 copies, 1 for each guest. That seems aggressive? Yes. But your parents chose to make this public when they told everyone you volunteered. We're simply correcting the record. She pulled out another document. Patricia from APS will attend as my +1. She'll be there in an observational capacity unless your parents try to leave or make a scene. Then she can intervene officially. Is that legal? Completely. It's a public venue, and she's investigating a case involving the subjects. Your parents will be served with official notice at the party. Consider it a birthday gift. I thought about Mom's face when she'd left Marcus at my door. No guilt, just determination. What if they refuse to take him back? Then we file criminal charges Monday morning. Abandonment of a dependent adult carries up to 3 years in prison in Florida. The trust violations add civil penalties. They'll lose their condo to pay damages. Jennifer printed everything in color, highlighting the key phrases: lifetime commitment, fiduciary duty, criminal penalties for violation. Mom's perfect party was about to become very imperfect. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. Marcus was having a good day. He'd eaten actual food, not just goldfish crackers, and the respite worker had confirmed for tomorrow. I'd pressed my only decent dress and practiced what I would say in the mirror. Jennifer called at 9 p.m. Patricia confirmed, she'll be there. Also, your Aunt Margaret called my office. She wants to help. Help how? She has photos from 3 years ago. The meeting where your parents signed the trust papers. Your father apparently gave a speech about protecting Marcus forever. She has video. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear something nice. If only she knew. I organized the documents into folders, one master set for me, 40 copies for distribution. Each packet included the email commitment, the trust documents with highlighted sections, and a summary Jennifer had written in plain English. Robert and Linda Miller abandoned their disabled son in violation of state law and fiduciary duty. The respite worker arrived at noon the next day. Marcus didn't want me to leave. He could sense something was different, but she was good with him, redirecting his attention to his favorite puzzle. Good luck, she said. Whatever you're doing, I hope it works. I drove to the Hilton with the boxes of documents in my trunk. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my heart was racing. 40 relatives were about to learn the truth about Linda and Robert Miller, the devoted parents who'd sacrificed everything. Jennifer was already there when I arrived, sitting at the hotel bar with Patricia. They looked like two friends having coffee, not a lawyer and a state investigator about to implode a family party. Ready? Jennifer asked. I thought about Marcus, standing in my doorway with his suitcase. Ready? The Hilton's private dining room was decorated in gold and white, elegant retirement themed. A slideshow of Mom's teaching career played on a loop. The cake, 3 tiers with sugar flowers, said, Happy 65th Linda, Florida bound. Mom swept over in a new sundress, already tanned from her 2 weeks in Clearwater. Florida, you made it! She hugged me, smelling like coconut sunscreen. Where's Marcus? He's with a caregiver, I said evenly. It costs $200. She blinked but recovered. Well, sometimes we need a break, don't we? Dad was holding court at a corner table, showing photos on his phone. The condo has hurricane windows, he was telling Uncle Paul. Safety first in Florida. Relatives filled the room. Cousins, aunts, uncles, Mom's book club, Dad's golf buddies. Everyone wanted to hear about their new life. Mom glowed as she described morning walks on the beach. Dad beamed, talking about year-round golf. You must miss Marcus, though, Cousin Jennifer said. Mom's face did something complicated. Oh, Florida's taking wonderful care of him. She insisted, actually, said it was time we had our own lives. I felt Jennifer Hayes watching from across the room. She'd positioned herself where she could see everything. Patricia sat 2 tables over, looking like any other guest. Aunt Margaret arrived late, giving me a meaningful nod as she set a gift bag on the present table. She'd worn her good pearls, the ones she only wore when she meant business. The servers began bringing out salads. Mom clinked her glass for attention. I just want to say how blessed we are to be here with all of you. The microphone was on a stand by the cake table, 20 feet away. When the time came, those 20 feet would feel like miles. Mom was in full performance mode. Robert and I have given 28 years to Marcus's care. 28 years of therapy appointments, special schools, medication adjustments, behavioral interventions. She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. We never complained, never asked for help. That's what parents do. The room murmured appreciation. Someone said, You're saints. But Florida, Mom continued, finding me in the crowd, our amazing daughter, came to us 2 months ago. She said, and I'll never forget this, Mom, Dad, you've done enough. Let me take over. You deserve to be free. My stomach turned to ice. 2 months ago? I was working double shifts to pay off my student loans 2 months ago. She insisted, Dad added, standing beside Mom. We tried to talk her out of it, told her it was too much responsibility. But you know, Florida, once she sets her mind on something... She even found an apartment closer to Marcus's doctor's, Mom lied smoothly. Planned the whole transition herself. Uncle Paul raised his wineglass. To Florida, what a wonderful daughter. The room erupted in applause. People were looking at me with such admiration. The woman beside me whispered, Your parents raised you right. Where is Marcus today? Someone called out. Oh, Florida arranged respite care, Mom said. She's learning to take time for herself, too. We taught her that balance is important. Aunt Margaret's face was stone. She knew. A few others looked confused. Hadn't I just moved to that apartment last year? But most were buying it completely. Actually, Mom said, warming to her theme, it's perfect timing. Florida's 32, not getting any younger, and caring for Marcus gives her such purpose. Some women have children, Florida has her brother. Jennifer Hayes stood up, but I was already walking toward the microphone. Let me tell you about my daughter, Mom continued, not seeing me approach. She's never been lucky in love, never brought anyone home. But Marcus needs her. And being needed, well, that's a kind of love too, isn't it? Sympathetic nods around the room. Poor Florida, 32 and single, at least she has Marcus. Some people build careers, Dad added. Florida's building character. Taking care of Marcus will teach her things she could never learn in that emergency room. Plus, Mom stage whispered, between us, I think she was getting a bit too comfortable. Living alone, no responsibilities besides work. Marcus gives her routine, structure, a reason to come home. She was spending too much time at that hospital, Aunt Sarah chimed in. Now she has a real purpose. I was 10 feet from the microphone when Mom delivered the final blow. I told Robert just yesterday. Maybe this is God's plan. Florida couldn't have children of her own anyway. Not with her schedule and, let's be honest, her lifestyle. But Marcus is forever, he'll never leave her, never. The pity in the room was suffocating. Poor, lonely Florida with her empty apartment and empty womb. Thank God she has her disabled brother to give her meaning. Jennifer Hayes was recording on her phone. Patricia had her notebook out. Aunt Margaret stood up. I have something to share, I said into the microphone. The room turned. Mom's smile flickered but held. Oh, Florida wants to say something. How wonderful. I pulled the stack of documents from behind the podium where Jennifer had placed them. Since we're celebrating Mom's retirement and sharing family news, I brought some reading material. Dad's face changed first. He recognized the folder, the same type the trust lawyer had used. Sit down, Florida, he said quietly. I stood up. That moment when 40 relatives looked at me with pity. I know some of you have been there. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. We need to normalize standing up for ourselves, even against family. Share your thoughts below. What would you have done in my situation? Now let me show you what happened next. I have something to share, I repeated, my voice steady through the microphone. The room fell silent except for the slideshow's soft background music. Photos of Mom with her students, smiling, dedicated, trustworthy. Mom's smile stayed frozen. Florida, honey, maybe we should... 3 weeks ago, I said, my parents drove to my apartment at 6 in the morning. They brought Marcus, his suitcase, and $500. They told me, you're the sister, it's your turn. And then they left. They blocked my phone number. They were already living in Florida. Forks stopped moving. Wine glasses paused mid-air. That's not, Dad started. I have the text messages, I continued. The disconnection notices from their phone company. The timestamp from my building's security camera. Would you like to see them? Murmurs rippled through the room. Cousin Jennifer's mouth was open. Uncle Paul set down his wine. There seems to be a misunderstanding, Mom said, her teacher voice attempting control. Florida, you're confused about the timeline. No confusion. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the projection system meant for Mom's slideshow. Here's the $500. Here's the note. For the first month. Here's my bank statement showing the deposit. Here's the receipt from the respite worker today. $200 for 4 hours so I could attend this party. The slideshow of Mom's career was replaced by evidence, receipts, text messages, that final number cannot be reached screenshot. She's having some kind of breakdown, Dad said to the room. The stress of caregiving. Actually, Aunt Margaret stood up. I'd like to hear more. Florida, you said they blocked your number? The same day, within an hour of dropping Marcus off, Jennifer Hayes moved closer to the projection screen. Patricia had her badge visible now, just slightly, on her blazer. I clicked to the next image. A photo I'd taken of Marcus that first night, curled up on my bedroom floor, because he wouldn't sleep anywhere else. This is where Marcus sleeps in my one-bedroom apartment, on the floor, because I don't have space for him, because I was never supposed to have him. Florida, stop this, Mom hissed, but the microphone caught it, amplified it. Marcus needs 24-hour care, I continued. He takes 7 medications daily. He requires a structured environment, routine, familiarity. My parents provided that for 28 years, and I respect that. But 3 weeks ago, they decided they were done. No discussion, no transition, no plan. You offered, Dad shouted. You said you wanted to help. When? I asked simply. Name the date. Name the conversation. Who was there? Silence. I'll tell you what conversation did happen, I said, clicking to the next document. 3 years ago, when Grandpa Joe died, when he left money in trust for Marcus, when Mom and Dad became trustees with legal obligations. The trust document filled the screen, key phrases highlighted in yellow. Fiduciary duty, lifetime care, legal obligation. They told everyone I volunteered, I said to the room. Ask yourselves, would any of you volunteer to take on 24-hour care with no notice, no preparation, no financial support? Would you give up your job, your apartment, your life? Overnight? People were looking at my parents now, not with sympathy, but confusion. She's twisting everything, Mom said desperately. We had an arrangement. Then show us the arrangement, Aunt Margaret said. Show us where Florida agreed to this. Mom's mouth opened and closed. Dad's face was red. I can show you something, I said, clicking to the next slide. The email filled the projection screen, dated 3 years and 2 months ago. The subject line bold. Marcus Miller Trust, Trustee Obligations and Commitments. This is from the trust formation, I said. Dad, you wrote this. I'll read it for everyone. We understand and accept our role as trustees for Marcus's care. We commit to ensuring his lifelong safety, health, and appropriate living situation. The room was dead silent. And here, I clicked, is the lawyer's response. This email confirmation serves as a binding addendum to the trust documents. That was about money, Dad said weakly. Managing the trust money. Then why does it say lifelong care? I asked. Why does it specifically mention appropriate living situation? Is my bedroom floor appropriate, Dad? I clicked again. The screen showed another email, this one from 6 months ago. This is Dad writing to Mr. Peterson, the trust lawyer, asking about disbursements for placement fees. You were planning to put Marcus in a group home, weren't you? Until you realized how much it would cost. That's private correspondence, Mom shrieked. Not anymore, Jennifer Hayes said, standing. I'm Jennifer Hayes, Florida's attorney. Mr. Peterson provided these emails as part of our fiduciary breach investigation. The room erupted, people talking over each other, staring at my parents, at me, at the screen. You hired a lawyer against your parents? Uncle Paul said, but he sounded more shocked than accusatory. I hired a lawyer to protect Marcus, I corrected. And myself, from abandonment, from financial ruin, from parents who think retirement means abandoning their disabled son. Aunt Margaret pulled out her phone. I have something too. She connected it to the projection system. This is from the trust meeting 3 years ago. A video started playing. Dad at the dining room table raising a glass, to Marcus, and to our commitment to his care, forever and always. Patricia Gonzalez stood up, her badge now fully visible. I'm from Adult Protective Services, state level. I'm here investigating a report of dependent adult abandonment. The room went silent again. Someone dropped a fork. This is a family matter, Dad said, but his voice shook. Abandoning a dependent adult is a criminal matter, Mr. Miller, Patricia said calmly, particularly when that adult is under a trust that you control as fiduciaries. Jennifer Hayes opened her briefcase on the gift table, pulling out official documents. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, you're being formally notified of several violations. First, criminal abandonment under Florida Statute 825.102. Second, breach of fiduciary duty under the Marcus Miller Trust. Third, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Financial exploitation? Mom's voice cracked. We gave Florida money. $500, I said. For someone who needs $4,000 a month in care. You kept the $50,000 trust while dumping the $50,000 annual responsibility. These are serious charges, Patricia added. Abandonment alone carries up to 3 years imprisonment. The financial crimes could add more. The birthday cake sat untouched, Florida bound, mocking in pink frosting. The slideshow had auto-advanced to a photo of Mom receiving a teaching award for excellence in ethics education. You can't arrest us at my birthday party, Mom whispered. I'm not here to arrest anyone today, Patricia said. But Mr. and Mrs. Miller, you need to understand. This investigation is real. The consequences will be real. And Florida has every right to pursue both criminal and civil action. Uncle Paul stood up. Linda, Robert, is this true? Did you really just drop Marcus off and leave? Mom's face went white. She looked around the room, 40 faces, all waiting. Her book club friends, Dad's golf buddies, the church choir director, everyone who'd thought they were the perfect parents. We deserve a life too, Mom exploded, mascara starting to run. 28 years. Do you people understand? 28 years of therapy appointments, meltdowns, medications, special schools, no vacations, no freedom, no life. Then you should have made proper arrangements, Aunt Margaret said coldly. Not dumped him like unwanted luggage. Florida doesn't have her own family, Dad said, desperate now. She's single, no kids. What else is she doing with her life? Working, I said. Saving lives in the ER, paying off student loans, building my own future. Or was, until you decided my life mattered less than your golf games. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. You want to talk about fair? You had 28 years to plan, to save, to arrange proper care. Instead, you snuck away like thieves, leaving me with a human being who needs round-the-clock care. You're being dramatic, Dad said, his default dismissal. Jennifer Hayes spoke up. Mr. Miller, would you abandon a dog with $500 and no return address? That's different. You're right. Abandoning a dog is a misdemeanor. Abandoning a dependent adult is a felony. Mom collapsed into her chair. We just wanted some peace. Is that so wrong? We just wanted a few years of peace. Then you should have asked for help, I said. Made arrangements, hired caregivers, used the trust money for its intended purpose, not committed fraud and abandonment. Fraud? Dad's voice cracked. Patricia nodded. Telling everyone Florida volunteered when she didn't? That's fraud. Taking trust disbursements while abandoning the beneficiary? That's fraud. Filing taxes claiming Marcus as a dependent while he's living elsewhere? That's fraud. The room was learning exactly who Robert and Linda Miller really were. Jennifer Hayes placed a document in front of my parents. Here are your options. Option 1, you immediately resume care of Marcus. You use the trust funds appropriately. You reimburse Florida for all expenses and lost wages. You establish a proper care plan with professional oversight. Option 2, Dad asked, his voice barely audible. Criminal prosecution. Civil lawsuit for trust violations. Penalties of triple damages. That's $150,000. Possible imprisonment. Definite bankruptcy, since you'll lose that Florida condo to pay damages. There's a third option, I said, surprising even Jennifer. You pay me $4,500 a month to care for Marcus properly. You maintain his insurance. You establish a special needs trust that I control. and you submit to quarterly reviews by APS. Mom looked up, mascara streaked. 4,500? That's the cost of proper care. That's what you should have been paying all along instead of pretending $500 was generous. We don't have that kind of money, Dad lied. Aunt Margaret laughed bitterly. You just bought a $200,000 condo in cash. We all know about Grandpa's other inheritance, Robert. The one you didn't put in trust. More murmurs, more secrets revealed. 48 hours, Jennifer said. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we file charges, criminal and civil. You're our daughter, Mom whispered. How can you do this? I learned from you, I said. You taught me that family takes care of each other. So take care of your son, all of him, not just the convenient parts. Patricia handed them her card. I'll be following up Monday morning. I suggest you have a lawyer present. The birthday cake still said Florida bound, but nobody was celebrating anymore. Mom broke first, sobbing into her hands, shoulders shaking, the kind of crying that changes your breathing. We were so tired, she gasped. So tired. Nobody understands. I understand, Aunt Margaret said quietly. But tired doesn't excuse abandonment. The room had divided. Some relatives comforted Mom. Others stood near me, silent support. Most just looked stunned, like they'd witnessed a car accident. We'll sign, Dad said suddenly. Whatever you want, we'll sign. Robert, Mom gasped. They have us, Linda. The email, the trust, the witnesses. He looked around the room, 40 people who'd heard everything. We'll sign. Jennifer pulled out the prepared agreement. She'd thought of everything. This establishes Florida as Marcus's paid caregiver. $4,500 monthly, paid on the first. Health insurance maintained. Respite care covered. Annual increases for inflation. This is extortion, Uncle Paul said, but weakly. No, Patricia corrected. Extortion would be threatening something illegal. This is accountability. Dad's hand shook as he signed. Mom could barely hold the pen. There's one more thing, I said. A public acknowledgement. You tell everyone here, truthfully, what you did. Florida, Mom started. Or we go to court Monday. Your choice. Mom stood, unsteady, faced the room. We left Marcus with Florida 3 weeks ago, without her consent. We blocked her number. We lied about her volunteering. Her voice broke. We abandoned our son. The church choir director left without saying goodbye. Mom's book club friends looked away. Dad's golf buddies shifted uncomfortably. The party's over, Dad said unnecessarily. People filed out slowly, some stopping to squeeze my shoulder, others avoiding eye contact entirely. The 3-tier cake went untouched. The Florida-bound decorations seemed to mock the entire disaster. We'd won, but nobody felt victorious. Monday morning, we met at Jennifer's office. My parents looked older, smaller, defeated. They'd brought their own lawyer, Mr. Davidson, who'd reviewed everything over the weekend. The terms are harsh but legal, he told them. Given the evidence, your fortunate criminal charges aren't being pursued immediately. We signed everything in triplicate. The monthly payment of $4,500 would start immediately, backdated to when they'd abandoned Marcus. Health insurance reinstated. A special needs trust established with me as trustee, funded with $30,000 from their savings. Additionally, Jennifer said, APS will conduct quarterly welfare checks. Any violation of this agreement triggers immediate criminal prosecution. Patricia was there to witness. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, you should understand. This goes in your permanent record. Any future reports of elder abuse, dependent abuse, or financial exploitation will reference this case. Mom signed mechanically. Dad's jaw stayed clenched. There's also the matter of taxes, Jennifer continued. You'll need to amend your returns. Marcus is Florida's dependent now. Every signature was notarized, every page initialed, no room for misunderstanding. The first payment, Jennifer said, sliding an invoice across the table, due today. Dad wrote the check, $4,500. His hand shook slightly. And the back payments, Jennifer added. 3 weeks at the daily rate, minus the 500 you left. That's 3,700. Another check. Marcus's medications need refilling, I said. His insurance cards? Mom pulled them from her purse without looking at me. We were family conducting business, nothing more. When everything was signed, my parents left without saying goodbye. I watched them walk to their car, the same SUV they'd used to drop Marcus off. You did the right thing, Jennifer said. But right things shouldn't feel this hollow. The family WhatsApp group exploded, then went silent. Messages deleted. People left. What had been 60 members became 12. Aunt Sarah called me selfish. They're old, Florida. They deserve rest. Cousin Jennifer said I'd humiliated them unnecessarily. You could have handled it privately. But Aunt Margaret became my fiercest defender. They humiliated themselves, she told anyone who'd listen. Florida just held up a mirror. The church took sides. Mom stopped attending, too ashamed to face people. Dad quit his golf club after word spread. They'd planned to be social butterflies in Florida. Instead, they became hermits in Clearwater. They had to sell the condo, Aunt Margaret told me 6 weeks later. Move to a one-bedroom rental. The legal fees, the payments to you, maintaining Marcus's insurance, it's eating their retirement. I felt nothing. Maybe I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. Marcus was thriving. With proper funding, I'd hired professional caregivers. He attended a day program. He had his own room now. I'd moved to a 2-bedroom with the first payment. He still needed routine, still had hard days, but he was safe, cared for, not abandoned. Not. 3 months later, Uncle Paul called. Your mom's sick, stress-related, the doctor says. Your dad's struggling. They can afford health care, I said. They have insurance. That's cold, Florida. No, cold is dropping your disabled son at someone's door with $500 and disappearing. The family reunion that year had 12 people instead of 60. Nobody mentioned Marcus or my parents or the birthday party that became evidence in an APS file. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward. 6 months into our new arrangement, Marcus spoke his first new word in 3 years. Home. He was pointing at our apartment, the 2-bedroom I'd rented with proper space for him. His room had the same blue walls as his old one, the same Pokemon posters, the same weighted blanket, structure, routine, safety. The day program at Riverside Center changed everything. Professional staff who understood autism, sensory rooms, peer interaction. Marcus made a friend, another man named David, who liked puzzles too. They sat together, not talking, just existing peacefully side by side. He's making remarkable progress, his behavioral therapist said. The consistency is helping. The stress of the transition is fading. With the monthly payments, I hired Keisha, a home health aide who specialized in autism care. She came 4 days a week, giving me time to return to work full-time. My supervisor, Helen, welcomed me back. We missed you. The ER isn't the same without someone who actually cares. Marcus started cooking simple meals, sandwiches, cereal, even scrambled eggs with supervision. He learned to use the washing machine. Small victories that my parents had never believed possible because they'd stopped trying years ago. Your brother has more capability than anyone realized, his doctor said. He just needed the right support. The quarterly APS visits became routine. Patricia always noted the same thing. Environment appropriate, client thriving, care plan being followed. I sent my parents monthly updates, photos of Marcus at the day program, reports from his doctors, not to hurt them, but to document, to show that with proper resources and respect, Marcus could grow. They never responded, but they never missed a payment either. Marcus was finally getting what he'd always deserved, not just care, but dignity, not just supervision, but support to become his best self. A year later, I ran into Mom at Walmart. She was buying generic brands, her Florida tan faded, her hair more gray than I remembered. Florida, she said, frozen by the pharmacy counter. Mom. We stood there, two strangers who shared DNA and nothing else. She looked at my scrubs, my hospital badge. You're back at work full-time? Yes, Marcus has proper care now. She flinched. Is he… How is he? Thriving. The day program, the stability, the professional support. He's doing better than ever. Her eyes filled with tears. We could have… Yes, I cut her off. You could have. You had $50,000 and 28 years of experience. You could have arranged proper care. You chose not to. We see that now. Good. I started to leave, then turned back. He learned to make coffee. Can you believe that? Marcus makes coffee every morning. He's proud of it. She was crying openly now. An employee asked if she was okay. Boundaries aren't punishment, Mom. They're protection. I protected Marcus. I protected myself. That's what family really does. I left her there. Our relationship would never recover. Some wounds cut too deep. But I'd learned something valuable. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Family doesn't mean sacrificing your entire life. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is say no. My phone buzzed. Keisha sending a video of Marcus at the day program, laughing at something David said. Real laughter, joy. That's what mattered. Not my parents' retirement dreams, not family reputation, not even reconciliation. Marcus's laugh, his safety, his dignity. I'd lost parents but saved a brother. It was a trade I'd make again. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when life gets hard. Keisha showed up 4 days a week. Jennifer fought for us pro bono initially. Aunt Margaret stood up when it mattered. Even Patricia from APS became someone who checked in, not just officially, but personally. My parents? They sent checks. Nothing more. I learned that no is a complete sentence, that guilt is not a reason to destroy your life, that sometimes the law is the only language certain people understand. Marcus and I built our own routine: Saturday movies, Sunday walks, his favorite Thai restaurant every Wednesday. He still needed constant care, still had hard days, but they were our days, chosen, not forced, supported, not desperate. The trust money, properly managed, would last his lifetime. The monthly payments covered daily expenses. Marcus had security my parents tried to steal from him. At the 2-year mark, I got a letter from their lawyer. They wanted to modify the agreement, reduce payments, claim hardship. Jennifer laughed when I called her. They bought another condo, smaller, but still Florida oceanfront. They're claiming poverty while living in a $150,000 property. We declined their request. Some people think I'm heartless, that I destroyed my parents' retirement. But they had choices. Every step, they had choices. They chose abandonment. They chose lies. They chose themselves over their vulnerable son. I chose differently. I chose Marcus. I chose boundaries. I chose to use the system that failed us initially to ultimately protect us. If you're carrying family burdens that were forced on you, know this: you have choices too. Document everything, seek legal help, set boundaries, and never, ever let anyone convince you that their comfort matters more than your life. Family takes care of each other, but that street runs both ways. If my story helped you realize you're not alone in dealing with family boundaries, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. What's the hardest boundary you've had to set with family? And remember, standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Check out my next video about recognizing manipulation tactics in families. Thank you for listening to my story.